My name is Manford, but most people just call me Grandpa Maff. I'm 64 years old, and for most of my life I believed family meant protection. I believed that. Right up until the afternoon my son's wife smiled at me and said, "This is best for everyone, including you." She said it gently, calmly, the kind of calm that doesn't invite questions. We were sitting at the dining table. No argument, no raised voices, just coffee cooling between us, and a thin stack of papers placed neatly in front of me. I remember thinking how strange it was, how quiet the house felt, how my son wouldn't quite meet my eyes, how that smile stayed on her face a second longer than it should have. I didn't understand it then, but I do now, because that wasn't reassurance. It was preparation. In that moment, I went from being father to being an obstacle they needed to manage. I'm going to tell you what those papers really meant, why they were so confident I wouldn't read them carefully, and how that single sentence revealed months of conversations I was never meant to hear. But before I begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? To everyone who keeps coming back and listening, thank you. Your support reminds me that silence doesn't have to win. And if this is your first time here, take a moment to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You're not just listening to stories. You're standing with people who were pushed aside quietly and learned to see clearly. Now, let me tell you what was hidden behind that smile. It was a Tuesday. Late afternoon sun coming through the kitchen window, the kind that makes everything look softer than it is. Janice had texted me that morning. "Can you come up to the house around 4? Just want to go over a few things." Nothing unusual. She did that sometimes, asked me about bills, about maintenance on the guest house I'd been living in for the past 3 years, ever since my wife Marilyn passed. The guest house sits behind their property, maybe 200 feet from the main house, close enough to feel like family, far enough to feel like I still had my own life. Or so I thought. Matthew was already there when I walked in. My son, 41 years old, works in medical equipment sales, does well enough to afford this place. He was standing near the counter, arms crossed, staring at his phone. "Hey, Dad," he said, not looking up. "Hey, kiddo." Janice gestured to the chair. "Sit, Mayford. Coffee?" I sat. She poured. That should have been my first clue. She never poured coffee for me. It was always help yourself, Mav, or you know where the mugs are. She slid the folder across the table. Manila. Maybe 10 pages inside. Neat. Professional. "So," she said, and that smile appeared. Warm, rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. "Matthew and I have been talking, and we think it's time we start planning ahead. For your care." I blinked. "My care?" "You're 64 now, Mayford, and that's not old, but it's not young either. And we've noticed some things." "Things?" Matthew finally looked up. His jaw was tight. "You've seemed off, Dad. Forgetting stuff. Repeating yourself." I stared at him. "I don't—" Janice touched my hand. Gentle. The damn smile still there. "It's okay. It happens to everyone. We just want to make sure you're safe. That's all this is." She opened the folder. The first page was a power of attorney document. My name at the top. Matthew's name listed as agent. The second was something called a comprehensive care assessment from a facility called Meadowbrook Senior Living. The third was an estate planning checklist. I scanned them, confused, my heart starting to thud in that slow, sick way it does when something's wrong but you can't name it yet. "I don't understand," I said. "I'm healthy. I drive. Dad." Matthew's voice sharper now. "You called me James last week." I frowned. "I didn't." "You did, on the phone. You called me James. That's Uncle James. He's been dead for 6 years." I felt my face go hot. Had I? I didn't remember that. But sometimes names slip. That's normal, isn't it? Janice leaned in. "This isn't a punishment, Manford. It's love. We want to get ahead of this before it gets worse. Meadowbrook is beautiful. Private rooms, activities, full medical staff. You'd be safe. Safe. The word sat there between us like a stone. I flipped through the pages again, slower this time, and that's when I saw it. Tucked between the estate planning documents, a real estate listing. My guest house, charming one-bedroom income property, $425,000. Perfect for rental investment or multi-generational living. My hands went cold. What? What is this? Janice's smile faltered, just for a second. Oh, well, we were just exploring options. If you're not living there anymore, it makes sense to sell it. Silence. Matthew shifted. Dad, you wouldn't need it. You'd be at Meadowbrook. And you'd just sell my home. It's not really your home, Dad. His voice was quieter now, almost apologetic. It's on our property. Technically. Technically. That word landed harder than anything else. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. And I saw it. The guilt in his eyes, yes, but also the resolve. He'd already made this decision. This wasn't a conversation. It was a notification. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I made them work. I'm not signing anything today, I said. Janice's smile returned, but it was tighter now. Of course, take your time. Look it over. We're not rushing you. I folded the papers, took them with me. As I walked back toward the guest house, I heard her voice through the window, on the phone already. He took it better than expected. We can move forward. I stopped walking, stood there in the driveway, clutching those papers, the sun setting behind the trees. And I realized they'd been planning this. For weeks, maybe months. And I'd been too blind to see it coming. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I kept replaying it. The smile. The folder. That real estate listing. Technically. At 2 a.m., I was sitting in my tiny kitchen, staring at the papers spread out on the table under the single hanging light. I must have read them a dozen times, looking for something I'd missed. Some clause, some explanation that made this make sense. But all I kept seeing was my name, and Matthew's, and the word agent next to his. That's when I remembered. Marilyn's boxes. When she died 3 years ago, I'd packed up her things. Clothes, books, photo albums, journals. I couldn't look at them then. It hurt too much. Matthew offered to store them in the attic of the main house. "Until you're ready, Dad," he'd said. "No rush." I never went through them, but Marilyn was meticulous. She kept everything. Records, receipts, notes. If something was wrong, if I was truly declining, like they said, wouldn't she have noticed? Wouldn't she have written something down? I had to know. At 2:30 a.m., I walked across the dark yard to the main house. I still had the emergency key they'd given me years ago, the one they probably forgot about. The lock turned quietly. Inside, the house was silent. They were asleep upstairs. I moved carefully, slowly, up to the second floor and pulled down the attic ladder. The attic smelled like dust and old cardboard. I found Marilyn's boxes in the corner, labeled in her handwriting. Photos, clothes, journals, files. I opened the one marked Files first, and that's when my hands started shaking. The box had been opened before. The tape was resealed, but messily, not how Marilyn would have done it, and the contents were out of order. Papers shoved back in, crooked, like someone had gone through them in a hurry. I pulled everything out. Bank statements, tax returns, and then something I'd completely forgotten about. A life insurance policy, $750,000. Marilyn and I had taken it out 20 years ago. I was the insured. Matthew was listed as the beneficiary. That was normal. He was our only child. Of course he'd inherit, but underneath that, clipped together with a binder clip, were documents I didn't recognize. A letter, typed on medical letterhead. Dr. Leslie Hartman, neurologist. It was addressed to whom it may concern, and dated 4 months ago. This letter is to confirm that Manford, last name, has been under my care for progressive cognitive decline. Symptoms include memory loss, confusion, and impaired judgment. I recommend a full assessment for potential guardianship arrangements. I read it twice, then a third time. I'd never heard of Dr. Leslie Hartman. I'd never seen a neurologist. This letter was about me, but I'd never been to this appointment. My chest felt tight. I kept digging. More papers, bank statements from my accounts, but with Matthew's name added as a co-signer. The date, 6 months ago. I never authorized that. And then, at the bottom of the box, printed emails. The first one was from Janice. Subject line, timeline for Dad's relocation and property transfer. It was sent to someone named Miranda, Janice's sister. I scanned it, my vision blurring. Miranda, we need to move faster. Manford is still lucid and he's starting to ask questions. Once we get the POA signed, we can list the guest house and start the Meadowbrook process. The equity from both properties will clear our debt and give us breathing room. He'll be taken care of. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. I sat back on my heels, the paper trembling in my hands. They weren't worried about me. They were in debt. And I was the solution. I kept looking. Found another email. This one from Matthew to Janice, dated 2 months ago. Jay, talked to Mom's lawyer. If we can prove Dad's incompetent, we can bypass his consent entirely. Miranda says it's legal as long as we have medical documentation. Leslie H. confirmed he'll backdate the eval if needed. Let's do this before he changes his will. Leslie H., the fake neurologist. The one whose letter claimed I was declining. I thought I might be sick. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Every page, every email, every forged document. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it, resealed the box, climbed down, locked the door behind me. By the time I got back to the guest house, the sky was starting to lighten. I sat on the edge of my bed and called the one person I knew I could trust, Dale, my old poker buddy, retired attorney. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Manford, it's 5 a.m. I know, I said. I need a lawyer, a real one, and I need a doctor who'll tell the truth. There was a pause. Then, what happened? I closed my eyes. My son is trying to erase me. That email, those words. Everyone wins. I want you to understand something. I raised that boy. I taught him to ride a bike. I paid for his college, and this is what I was worth to him. A number on a balance sheet. But here's what Matthew didn't know. His mother saw him. Before she died, she saw who he was becoming, and she left me everything I needed to fight back. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you'd have died for, comment below. Say their name or don't, just let me know I'm not alone. We're 500 subscribers away from me posting it. Let's build this together. You're not just watching a story. You're standing with someone who refused to disappear. Dale met me at a diner 40 minutes outside town, somewhere we wouldn't be seen. He's 72, been retired for a decade, but his eyes were sharp as ever when he spread my photos across the table between our coffee cups. He studied them in silence. The forged medical letter, the emails, the bank statements with Matthew's name added without my consent. Finally, he looked up. Manford, he said quietly. This is textbook elder financial abuse. Criminal, actually. Forgery, fraud, exploitation. Take your pick. I felt something loosen in my chest. Validation, maybe. Proof I wasn't losing my mind. Can we stop it? Yes, but you need more than this. You need their endgame in writing, clear intent, and you need to move carefully. If they know you're onto them, they'll accelerate. I nodded. My hands were shaking around the coffee mug. Dale leaned forward. Is there anyone else? Anyone who might have seen Matthew do something like this before? That's when I thought of her. Melody, Matthew's first wife, the one before Janice. They divorced 7 years ago, messy and fast. Matthew said she'd had a breakdown, that she was unstable, that it wasn't safe for their daughter, my granddaughter Leslie, to be around her. I'd believed him. Of course I had. He was my son. Melody disappeared after that. No calls, no visits. I figured she'd moved on, wanted nothing to do with us. But now... His ex-wife, I said. Melody. They had a daughter together. After the divorce, I never saw either of them again. Dale raised an eyebrow. You think he did this to her too? I don't know, but I need to find out. It took me 2 days to track her down. Facebook, finally. Her profile was private, but I could see her name. Her profile picture. She looked older, tired, but alive. I sent a message. Melody, this is Manford, Matthew's father. I know it's been a long time. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please. She didn't respond for 3 days. I thought maybe she'd blocked me, or maybe she just wanted nothing to do with our family ever again. But then, late on a Thursday night, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Manford? Her voice. I barely recognized it. Melody, thank you for calling. Silence on the other end. Then, why now? After 7 years, why now? I didn't sugarcoat it. Because my son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can take everything I have. And I think he might have done something similar to you. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. You have no idea, she said. We talked for over an hour. She told me everything. How, during the divorce, Matthew had suddenly produced medical records claiming Melody had been hospitalized for psychiatric issues. Records she'd never seen before. Diagnoses she'd never received. How his lawyer used those records to paint her as unfit. Dangerous even. How she'd lost custody of Leslie. Not fully. She got supervised visits at first. But then those were taken away too when Matthew claimed she'd violated the terms. I didn't, she said, her voice breaking. I showed up on time. I followed every rule. But he said I didn't. And the judge believed him. Melody, why didn't you fight harder? I tried, Mayford. I tried. But I was broke. He had money, lawyers, connections. And everyone believed him because he's Matthew. Successful. Respectable. Who's going to believe the unstable ex-wife? My throat tightened. I'm so sorry. You didn't know, she said quietly. None of you did. Marilyn tried to reach out once, but Matthew told her I didn't want contact. And then she got sick, and I wasn't paying attention. No, you weren't. It hurt, but it was true. Melody, I said, do you still have any of those records? The ones Matthew used against you? Some. I kept copies of everything. I didn't know what else to do with them. Can you send them to me? She hesitated. Why? What are you going to do? I'm going to stop him. Another pause. Mayford. He has people. Connections. He knows how to make documents look real. During our divorce, his lawyer had a letterhead from some neurologist, Dr. Leslie Hartman. Except I called that office. It doesn't exist. My blood went cold. What did you say? Dr. Leslie Hartman. It was on the psychiatric evaluation he submitted. Fake name. Fake practice. But it looked official enough to fool the court. The same name. The same fake doctor. He'd used it on her. And now he was using it on me. Melody, I said slowly, do you know where Leslie is now? My granddaughter? Her voice cracked. No. He cut me off completely. Changed his number. I tried to find her on social media, but her accounts are private, and I didn't want to make things worse for her. How old is she now? 16. 16. I'd missed 7 years of her life because I believed my son's lies. I'm going to fix this, I said. Not just for me, for you, and for Leslie. Manford, I mean it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, he's dangerous when he's cornered. Be careful. I will. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, staring at my phone. Then I opened my email and sent a message to the private investigator Dale had recommended. I need you to find someone, a 16-year-old girl named Leslie, and I need to know if she's safe. 3 days after I hired the investigator, Janice invited me to dinner. The invitation came by text, cheerful and casual. Family dinner tomorrow night? 6 p.m. Miranda's visiting, and we'd love to have you. Miranda, Janice's younger sister, the one whose name was all over those emails. I almost said no, but Dale's voice was in my head. You need their end game in writing. You need them to feel safe enough to talk. So I said yes, and I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. I showed up at 6, shuffling a little more than usual. I let my keys slip from my hand on the porch and fumbled to pick them up. Matthew opened the door. "Hey, Dad, you okay?" I smiled, vague and soft. "Oh, fine. Just, these hands don't work like they used to." He exchanged a glance with Janice behind him. I saw it, the look that said, "See?" Inside, Miranda was already seated at the table. Late 30s, sharp-looking blonde hair pulled back tight. She stood and shook my hand with the kind of firmness that said, "I'm in control here." "Manford, so nice to finally meet you. Janice has told me so much." "I bet she has." "Likewise," I said. We sat. Janice had made roast chicken. It smelled good. Almost made me forget why I was really there. Almost. Dinner started pleasant enough. Small talk, the weather, Miranda's work as a paralegal. I played along, asking simple questions, laughing at the right moments. Then, halfway through the meal, I let myself slip. "Janice," I said, looking at her warmly. "Marilyn, honey, could you pass the salt?" The table went silent. Janice's smile faltered. Just for a second. Matthew put down his fork. "Dad, that's Janice." I blinked, looked around like I was confused. "What?" "You called her Marilyn. Mom's been gone 3 years." I let my face fall, let the embarrassment show. Oh God, I'm sorry. I don't know why I—" Janice reached over and touched my hand. "It's okay, Mayford. It happens." But her eyes were on Matthew, and in them I saw something cold. Satisfaction. After dinner, Matthew got a call and stepped outside. Janice followed him. It was just me and Miranda. She poured herself more wine, offered me some. I accepted, even though I rarely drink anymore. "You seem like you're doing well, Mayford," she said, studying me. I let my hand shake a little as I lifted the glass. "Oh, I have good days and bad days. Today's been okay." She leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Janice told me you've been having some trouble. Memory things." I nodded slowly. "I guess. I don't always notice. But Matthew and Janice, they've been worried. They love you. They just want to make sure you're safe." I let my eyes go glassy, vulnerable. "I don't want to be a burden, Miranda. I really don't. The thought of going to one of those places—" "Meadowbrook isn't one of those places," she said quickly. "It's beautiful, and Matthew has the legal right to make decisions for you. You signed those papers 6 months ago, remember?" I stared at her. I never signed papers. But she didn't know I knew that. I don't remember," I said softly. She reached over and patted my hand. "That's okay. That's exactly why this is for the best." I nodded, played defeated. Then, carefully, "Will I still get to see Leslie? My granddaughter?" Miranda's face shifted, just slightly. "Leslie? Oh, sweetie. She's doing great. She's at boarding school now. You'll see her at holidays." Boarding school? Melody had no idea where Leslie was. Matthew had told me she was busy with school activities. But boarding school? That's good," I said. "I miss her." "She misses you too," Miranda said, smiling. But I saw it in her eyes. She had no idea if that was true. 10 minutes later, Miranda excused herself to use the bathroom. She left her phone on the table. I didn't think. I just acted. I tilted the screen toward me. One message preview was visible. From Janice. Mom agreed to testify about Dad's confusion. Doctor's eval scheduled for next week. After that, we file. I took a picture with my phone. Fast. Quiet. By the time Miranda came back, I was staring at my empty plate, looking lost. When Matthew and Janice returned, I hugged them both. "Thank you," I whispered, "for caring about me." Matthew looked relieved, almost guilty. "Always, Dad." I walked back to the guest house slowly, shoulders hunched. But the moment I shut the door, I stood up straight. I pulled out my phone and called Dale. "Get me a real doctor," I said, "one who'll evaluate me properly, and get me that lawyer. We're filing." "When?" "Now." Then I called the private investigator. "Did you find her?" "Yeah," he said. "Leslie's not at boarding school, Mayford. She lives with them. And from what I can see on her social media, she's not happy." I closed my eyes. Send me everything. Dr. Marilyn Chen. I chose someone with my wife's name, and it felt like she was there with me. Spent 3 hours testing me. Memory, logic, spatial reasoning. She asked me to recall lists, solve puzzles, tell her what year it was, who was president, what I'd eaten for breakfast. I passed everything. When she handed me the letter, official and notarized, my hands shook. Mr. Manford demonstrates full cognitive capacity with no signs of dementia, memory impairment, or confusion. He is fully competent to manage his own affairs. I sat in her office and cried, not from relief, from rage, because this piece of paper proved what I already knew, that my son had been willing to erase me based on lies. Dale filed the emergency injunction that afternoon. No financial transactions, no property sales. Everything frozen until a hearing. But that wasn't enough, because there was still Leslie. The private investigator sent me her Instagram handle. I created a fake account, some random username, no photo, and sent her a message at midnight. "This is your grandfather. I've been kept from you, and you've been kept from me. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. 2 p.m. Riverside Coffee on Main Street. I'll be the old man in the corner booth wearing a blue jacket. Come alone." I didn't sleep that night. At 1:47 p.m. the next day, I was already there, hands wrapped around a coffee I couldn't drink. At 2:03, the door opened, and there she was, 16 years old, tall and lean with Marilyn's dark eyes and her mother's soft features, wearing a hoodie and jeans, backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked scared. I stood up. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she whispered, "Grandpa Maff?" I nodded. She crossed the room and collapsed into the booth across from me, and the tears came before either of us could stop them. "They told me you were sick," she said, voice cracking. "Dad said you didn't want to see me because it was too hard, that you needed space." "I never said that, Leslie. Not once." "I know." She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I know that now, because last week I heard them talking. Dad and Janice. They were in the kitchen and I was upstairs, but the vent carries sound and I heard Dad say, 'Once he's in Meadowbrook, we can sell both properties and clear the debt.'" I felt my chest tighten. "You heard that?" She nodded, looking down at her hands. "I didn't understand it at first, but then Janice said your name, and I realized they were talking about you, about putting you somewhere, and I started paying attention. Really paying attention." "What else did you hear?" Leslie's voice dropped. "That you were a problem. That you were asking too many questions. That Miranda was handling the legal side and it would all be over soon." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Leslie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you know where your mom is?" Her face crumpled. "No. Dad told me she didn't want me, that she chose to leave." "That's not true. She's been looking for you for 7 years. He kept you from her." Leslie pulled her hand back, covered her face, and sobbed. I let her. There was nothing I could say that would make it hurt less. Finally, she looked up, eyes red and swollen. Why would he do that? Because he needed control, and your mom fought back, so he made her disappear. And now he's doing it to you. Yes. She sat back, shaking her head. I felt it, Grandpa. For years. Like something was wrong in that house. Like we were all pretending. But I didn't know how to name it. You were a kid. You're still a kid. This isn't on you. But I could have helped. You're helping now. She looked at me, searching my face. What are you going to do? I pulled out my phone, opened Melody's contact. I'm going to give you your mom's number, and then I'm going to do what I should have done the day Janice slid those papers across the table. What's that? I'm going to stop pretending this is about love, and start treating it like what it is. What is it? I met her eyes. Theft. Leslie called Melody that night. I wasn't there for it, but Melody called me after, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. She remembers me, she whispered. She said she remembers my voice. Mayford, she wants to see me. Then see her. I'll make it happen. How? You let me worry about that. 2 days later, I invited Matthew, Janice, and Miranda to dinner at the main house. My treat, I said. I want to talk about the future. Matthew sounded relieved. Yeah, Dad, that'd be great. We can go over everything. Good, I said. I'll cook Marilyn's pot roast. When I hung up, Leslie was standing in my doorway. Are you sure about this? She asked. I nodded. They think they've already won. That's when people get careless. She stepped inside, sat on my couch. I'm scared. Me too. What if it doesn't work? I looked at her, this girl who'd been lied to her whole life, who was brave enough to show up anyway. Then we try again. But Leslie, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She nodded. Then get ready, because tomorrow night, everything changes. This 16-year-old girl, my granddaughter, was willing to stand up to her own father for the truth. How many of you have ever had to choose between loyalty and honesty? Between family and what's right? Comment below. And subscribe. Because next is the final confrontation. The moment where every lie comes to light. Where everyone sits at the same table and faces what they've done. This is it. The ending you've been waiting for. We're 2,000 subscribers away from 10K. Let's cross that line together. This story ends today. I cooked Marilyn's pot roast the way she taught me. Slow. Careful. With love. The house smelled the way it used to, back when we were whole. Matthew arrived first, Janice beside him. They were dressed nicely, smiling. Miranda came 10 minutes later carrying wine, and Leslie was already there. Upstairs in her room, waiting for my signal. We sat down to eat. I poured wine, made a toast. To family, I said. They echoed it, relaxed, confident. Then I set down my glass. Before dessert, I said, I want to clear something up. I placed the folder on the table. Matthew's smile faltered. I opened it slowly, pulled out the documents one by one. The forged medical letter from Dr. Leslie Hartman, a neurologist who doesn't exist. The emails between Janice and Miranda about timelines and property sales. The bank statements showing Matthew added himself without my consent. Melody's divorce records, showing the same fake doctor, the same playbook. I laid them out like cards. So, I said quietly, who wants to explain first? The room went silent. Matthew's face drained of color. Dad, You forged documents to make me look incompetent. You plan to sell my home. You've been stealing from me for months. Janice's hand went to her mouth. Mayford, it's not what it looks like. Then what is it? She looked at Matthew. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Miranda stood up. This is inappropriate. We should discuss this privately. Sit down, Miranda. You're named in half these emails. You helped them. She sat. Matthew finally spoke, voice barely a whisper. "We were desperate, Dad. The business is failing. We're drowning in debt. We just needed— You needed my money, so you decided I didn't deserve to exist anymore. That's not— Yes, it is." My voice cracked the air like thunder. "You tried to erase me. You would have locked me away in some facility, sold everything I had, and told yourself it was mercy." Janice was crying now. Real tears. "We were going to take care of you. Like you took care of Melody? Like you took care of Leslie?" At her name, Leslie appeared at the top of the stairs. Matthew's face went white. "Leslie, go back to your room." "No." Her voice was small but steady. She came down the stairs, stood beside me. "Grandpa told me everything. About Mom, about the fake doctor, about all of it." Matthew stood. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. I heard you, last week, talking about selling his house, about getting rid of him." Silence. Matthew sank back into his chair. I placed one more document on the table. "I've moved my assets into a protected trust. You can't touch them. I've transferred the guest house deed to Leslie. It's hers now. And I've sent everything you've done to the state bar, your employer, and a lawyer who specializes in elder abuse." Miranda closed her eyes. "But here's what I'm not doing," I said. "I'm not pressing charges. Not yet. Because you're still my son. And I want you to have one chance to do the right thing." Matthew looked up, face red and wet. "What do you want?" "I want you to call Melody. I want you to apologize. And I want Leslie to have her mother back." "And if I don't?" "Then I file everything, and you lose more than money." He stared at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Just once. I stood. "Dinner's over. Leslie, get your things. You're staying with me tonight." She followed me out, and I didn't look back. 6 months later. Leslie lives with me now. The guest house is ours. We cook together. We talk. She sees Melody twice a month. It's slow, but it's real. Matthew and Janice sold their house, moved across town. We don't speak much. But last week, he called. "Dad," he said, "I'm sorry." I believed him. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. "I know," I said, and I hung up. "Leslie's making pot roast tonight. Marilyn's recipe. I'm teaching her. And for the first time in years, I'm not afraid. They tried to make me disappear, but I'm still here, still standing, still whole. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever been underestimated, erased, or pushed aside, subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me, what's the one thing you're refusing to let someone take from you? Thank you for walking this road with me, for reminding me that silence doesn't have to win. We're a family now. Let's keep going. Together.